Hi, I'm Molly from Wild Olive, and in this video I'm going to show you how to print patterns on freezer paper. I have a whole separate video that talks about how to use freezer paper to cut out felt pieces. It makes it a lot easier, a lot smoother, but in this I'm going to be talking about how you can just print directly onto the paper instead of tracing by hand. Saves a lot of time. These pattern templates are from my It Felt Like Spring ornament set, and they're divided up like this by color so that it makes it easier to iron onto the felt individual colors. So this is like a pink color and green, purple, etc. So let me show you how I do this. If you're not familiar with freezer paper, first of all, I do recommend looking at my other freezer paper video, but it's designed for like wrapping meats or other food items to go in the freezer, and you can get it. It's made by Reynolds. You'll find it in a grocery store usually, but quilt stores will often sell it because it's useful for other crafting things. You can make stencils with it, etc. On one side of the paper, it is flat, like regular basic paper. And on the other side, it has this plastic coating, and that allows it to temporarily adhere to felt, which is really helpful for cutting small felt pieces. And normally I trace my pattern templates onto this by hand, but it can take a long time, especially with a lot of pieces. So I have started printing using my just home inkjet printer to print onto this. This is very important. Don't run this through a laser printer because the heat that is used in a laser printer could cause the plastic part of this to melt inside of your printer and it will ruin it. Do not use a laser printer. I only recommend an inkjet printer. Now, you're also going to need just a regular piece of paper, the standard size paper that your printer uses. In my case, it's a US letter size paper, which is 8.5 by 11. And I cut down a piece of freezer paper to the same size as it. In fact, it doesn't have to be exact, but close enough, right? You can also buy this pre-cut into printer size sheets. Then it is not curly like this is, but it's easy and cheap to buy a big roll of this and just keep it on hand. And that way you can also cut off different sizes that you might need. All right, so I have already cut down this piece of freezer paper and I'm lining it up with my piece of, I'm using it as like a carrier to go through my printer, but it's just regular printer paper. Then I'm going to take a little bit of tape and up at the top, just a tiny bit of overlap on the freezer paper, and I'm folding it over to the back of the printer paper. This top edge of my freezer paper wasn't exactly straight, but it's going to be just fine. So now it's attached at this top edge, and it's still kind of curly here at the bottom, but that's okay. Now, what you need to do is you need to feed this taped edge into your inkjet printer so that it will print on the top of your freezer paper. So whatever direction you need to load it in for that, and you can usually load it in such a way that this curl that's happening down at this end isn't a problem. Just, guide it, hold it as needed. And so I'm going to go and run this through the printer and you'll see the result in just a moment. All right, here is my printed pattern, and you can see that these are divided by color, and I've been trying to add that into my felt patterns. It makes it a lot easier. Obviously, not all patterns are going to be like this, but this way I can separate these out. You'll also see my printer occasionally does things like this. That's not going to affect the pattern itself because it's not going to touch the felt. It's got that plastic coating behind it. But also this happens. Oh, this is the downside of having freezer paper that comes on a roll. But again, once I cut this apart, it'll be fine. So I'm just going to cut through this tape. can still use that plain piece of paper again. And then for these pieces, I'm going to cut them apart by color. So this will be orange. The pieces here are labeled too, which is helpful to still have intact. Trim off the extra paper as well, because it doesn't need to be there when I'm cutting out the pieces. All right, here's all these pieces cut out, ready to iron onto felt, and then I can cut out the felt pieces. So much easier this way than hand tracing. All right, I have these all ironed onto my separate felt colors here, and I hope that you found this helpful. One last tip is do try to avoid ironing over the tape that held the freezer paper onto the carrier paper. Not ideal for your iron. But I hope you found this helpful. It really does speed up the process. Taking the time to cut down the freezer paper, it doesn't take that long compared to how long it would take to trace these. So if you are looking for more tips for stitching, whether it be felt, embroidery, cross stitch, I hope you follow the channel and watch for more fun stuff coming soon. Thanks so much for watching.